There is so much more to Aceu than meets the eye. Aceu has been dominating Apex Legends for years now, yet he doesn't even play the game full time. How does Aceu put so much time into Valorant, CSGO, and League of Legends, but still manages to be a top Apex player at the same time? There has to be something special or different about Aceu, and I found out what that is. I spent the past 2 months watching as much Aceu content as possible, analyzing his gameplay, and trying to replicate his playstyle myself in order to come to a final conclusion, and I'm going to share everything in this video. Usually the first thing I look at when I analyze a player is what legends they prefer and those that they don't. Legend choice can tell a lot about a player's initial playstyle, and it helped me to replicate Aceu's later on. To do this, I found Aceu's 100 most recent Apex videos and recorded the legend he was playing. Using YouTube allowed me to get only his best games and therefore his best legends. The results are as follows. He chose Wraith 46 times, Horizon 33 times, Rampart 11, Octane 8, Bangalore and Watson 4, and Catalyst and Bloodhound once. Nothing crazy, but it does tell us that Aceu gravitates towards mobility and movement legends such as Horizon, Wraith, and Octane. These legends help a player play more dynamically, and more specifically allow Aceu to be creative in the type of plays he makes. But I also noticed that in all of the competitive games, like tournaments and Twitch rivals, Aceu was able to play whatever legend the team needed him on. This showed the ability to be incredibly versatile even at the highest level of play. But what did I notice in his gameplay? The first thing that became apparent is his very calm demeanor. Aceu has a playstyle to match his personality.
He's just mad chill. 247, huh?
He never yells, complains, or gets upset at the game. He's a very chill dude, and it reflects in his gameplay. Aceu has a calm and in-control playstyle, which I noticed just watching him for fun, but when I really started to analyze his gameplay for this video, I realized why. Aceu's calmness comes from confidence in himself. When Aceu joins a lobby, he knows he is capable of beating anyone else in that lobby, no matter who they are. He knows he has the skills and ability to follow through with any decision, and he knows his decisions are almost always the right ones. And because of that, he never second guesses himself. He never gets flustered or hesitates, even in 3 vs 1 situations where most of us would. He is confident in a different way than Faide, It's Timmy, and most other streamers and pub stompers. Those guys are usually the ones initiating combat, chasing enemies, and pressuring. They are constantly moving around and running all over the place, which is fine, but Aceu manages to control fights in a very different way. He tends to take angles and hold positions and let the opponents come to him, which leads to a really solid, non-frantic style of play that I think we can all learn from. And because I really do believe that this kind of playstyle is the best for everyone, I wanted to use it myself. I decided to play 50 games with only this in mind and compare that to my all-time averages. I wanted to see how much of a difference simply staying calm and controlling fights like Aceu could make in a normal player's gameplay like my own. At the beginning, I struggled. By the end of the first 10 games, I had a KD of 1.52 and a win percentage of 0%. I didn't even win a single game. But from there, things only got better. By the end of the 50 games, my KD had risen from 1.52 to 2.1, and my win rate also increased to 10%. This was a sizable improvement to my all-time average of 1.8 KD and 6.73% win rate. Already, just by taking one simple aspect of Aceu's gameplay and adding it to my own, I was seeing instant results in just a few days. This experiment made me even more motivated to keep analyzing Aceu, and I wanted to try this again at the end, except use everything I had learned and included in this video to see how much we really can learn from Aceu. So it was time for me to go back to Google Docs, go back to spreadsheets, and keep going even further into Aceu's playstyle. When Aceu plays Apex, it reminds me of a cross between Shroud and Faide. He has the gun skill of Shroud and the movement of Faide, and I think the strong similarities he shares from Shroud come from playing games other than Apex. Aceu is comfortable just shooting his gun. By that I mean he often opts to stay back and hold a position or angle where he has a line of sight on the fight, rather than getting up close and constantly changing angles. Because of this, I routinely saw Aceu take up a support position in his team when he 3-stacked or played ranked. I was honestly really surprised when I started seeing this happen time after time. You would think Aceu, with his amazing movement and technical ability, would be the first one on his team charging headfirst into battle, but he wasn't. For example, in this clip, Aceu sees an enemy he knows is weak take the gravity cannon, but rather than take it himself, he waits for his teammate and goes second. You may have noticed that Aceu is almost always the last one alive on his team, and it is because of this factor of his playstyle. And then there's Aceu's incredible gun skill, which pairs right into this. Aceu uses every gun in the game to the best of its ability. He's not one of those players who has their 2 guns they like to use every game. He's comfortable and enjoys everything. Give Aceu an EVA 8 and he's happy. Give him the bow check and he's happy. Give him any meta weapon in the game and he's happy. Aceu is comfortable on everything and adapts when something new comes out. For example, the Nemesis. The gun came out at the beginning of Season 16 and right away Aceu started using it. He spent the time to master it as quickly as possible. He adapted to the Nemesis early, and the same goes for everything else. I almost didn't make this video because I thought there would be too much overlap between what I put in the Faide video and this one. But as soon as I started the research, I realized how different Aceu's gameplay is compared with everyone else's. The main similarity I found between them was simply the avoidance of committing, and Aceu still does it in a way very different to Faide. Both Faide and Aceu avoid fully committing to fights unless they are sure they can win. But where Faide does that by running around and switching angles as much as possible, Aceu will choose a single angle and wait. He loves baiting and predicting his opponents. It's common to see enemies ride a zipline straight up to him or walk right into his line of sight, where it's like shooting fish in a barrel for Aceu. Most Apex players never hold an angle unless they are actively shooting at someone, and because of that his opponents never expect it when Aceu does it. The amount of free kills and damage he gets from this is actually insane. I watched 25 of his most recent games on YouTube, where he got a total of 312 kills. Out of those 312 kills, 115 were a result of holding angles. That means over 1/3 of his kills were pretty much free. This is definitely something I was going to try implementing myself at the end of the video. But for now, we have to talk about what I think makes Aceu so special, his creativity. It's why people love to watch him and what makes his playstyle so unique. Aceu does not go about fights in a straightforward way. He thinks outside the box to make decisions that will catch his opponents off guard. His creativity affects every aspect of his game, but especially his movement. Aceu uses his movement to give himself opportunities that other players wouldn't have otherwise. He even said it in his own movement guide. He is constantly looking for alternate ways to get up buildings and get different angles to take his opponents by surprise.
So the first clip we have here for climbing, it kind of shows how the sky is the limit when it comes to climbing. Because I just found this on the go and I got really good at positioning on this guy on top of the roof. So just keep your eye out for different routes you can take. The second clip just showcases that pretty much any building in the game, there's alternative routes to take other than just taking the stairs or taking a really obvious direction or way that an enemy would be expecting.
Aceu's creativity is what makes his movement so good in general. He knows when and where to use movement techniques to create opportunities that most of us never see. There are 2 sides to being a good movement player. There's knowing how to do a movement technique, and there's knowing when and where to do a movement technique. Most of us have the first part down. We are able to do techniques like wall bounces all day long in the firing range. But when it comes to using it in a real game, we rarely even try. And when we do, it is not very effective. And this is why Aceu is known for his movement, even though he doesn't have an especially movement-oriented playstyle. Aceu has both parts down. He can consistently perform any movement technique in the game without messing up, and knows precisely when and where to use it in game, which allows him to use creative movement and actually have it lead to something. After all this research and analysis, I felt like I now really know what makes Aceu such a special player, and I wanted to implement it into my own gameplay. So of course, the first step was practicing how fast I could spin race kunai. And after an intense couple hours of kunai training, I knew I was ready to head into the real deal games and start playing like Aceu. I played another 50 games, this time implementing everything I had learned. I channeled my inner Aceu and played calmly, held angles, baited opponents, stayed in control of fights, and played creatively. Out of these 50 games, I won 13 and got a total of 236 kills. That means I had a KD of 4.72 compared to my prior average of 1.8, and a new win rate of 26% compared to the 6.73% I had earlier. So this was an obvious improvement, and had I been in ranked it would equate to significantly higher RP, but I also enjoyed the games a lot more too. I noticed the changes to my playstyle right away, and it felt good. I felt like Aceu. I was more in control of my fights and not having to rely on my teammates nearly as much. I've adapted to many different playstyles in the past, mostly for videos like this one. And honestly, I think the Aceu playstyle is the best I've ever used. I'm definitely going to take at least some of Aceu's playstyle and incorporate it into my own, and I suggest you do the same. Just remember, the more kunai spins, the better. In the meantime, go down there and hit that like button and subscribe button. I spent months researching and creating this video, so a like and subscribe and maybe even sending this video to someone who should see it would mean a lot. If you haven't seen the Faide Analysis video, I recommend you watch that next. And if you ever solo queue, I just made a video where I found out the absolute best method for solo queuers and Apex Legends through experiments like these. As always, thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day.